This one's for the culture. Me and wifey in the room thinking of a master plan, thinking how we can influence the culture from where we stand. Knowing that our steps are ordered by the master's hand, still 10 toes down, we ain't switching up the stance. The mission of this music ain't just to make them dance, trying to tell them about the
And welcome everybody to another episode of The Bond Chronicles. I am the infamous.
It's a strong word.
Okay, maybe not infamous yet, but highly sought after host.
You are highly sought
at
after.
Mr. Bond Chronicles on Instagram. At what is my Twitter?
Ooh, who today?
At Mr. Ray Bond on Twitter. Man, she's thrown me off. But part of the reason she's thrown me off is because we actually have an exciting announcement that I will let her talk about with our new way of contacting us and finding us.
Yeah.
You've been hard at work on it, so if you want to share with the people.
So I am Mrs. Bond Chronicles on Instagram. Mrs.
Oh, look how quickly karma comes back
but I don't
around.
ever get it right. So
You got it right last time. Okay, you got it right last time.
People expect that from me.
Yeah.
Ms. Bond Chronicles on Twitter and just Robin Bond on Facebook. But awesome news to announce, thebondchronicles.com drops today.
Hey.
It is live right now. After the episodes, you can go and check us out. There's stuff about us. There's more things about the podcast, a little behind the scenes stuff. Just a lot of time spent in front of the computer this last week. I just decided I'm going to learn how to code because apparently it's just a skill that shouldn't be required in life, and it would have saved me a lot of time. But you can check us out there. You can also now order these awesome t-shirts.
Yeah. We got merch.
We have merch now, yeah. The Bond Chronicles by Reaction Apparel, yay me,
Hey.
Contracting myself out to work for myself. That's always a cool thing.
Some tax breaks.
Tax breaks. Yeah, so again, the website is thebondchronicles.com.
So definitely exciting news. I will say this is episode 16. And a lot has happened. We've come a long way. We've partnered with some people. We've been on other people's podcasts. We've gained a significant, as far as I'm concerned, a significant following, whether it be on YouTube or social media. We now have a website. We got merch. We've done a lot in a relatively short period of time. And so we thank you for all your support. Just the constant feedback. That's starting to ramp up more. We keep getting likes from people we don't even know, which is great.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
It's not quite internet celebrity, but we're kind of getting there. We're almost like a big deal.
I don't know. Like, I had a celebrity block me on social media.
That is true.
I don't know.
That is true.
Yeah.
I don't know. We might, you're like, what? D-list, maybe?
I don't even think we're there yet.
But speaking of celebrities, so in the past week we've had two different boxing events. And they were entertaining, to say the least. So the big event was in Miami for Floyd Mayweather and Logan Paul. And
shout out to Floyd Mayweather. Like, a lot of people make fun about how he spends his money and all of that, but for the way that he brings the bag in, like, I don't know if there are any boxers that are as successful as
financially,
he
definitely not.
has been in his retirement, but these boxers coming up now could definitely take note because Floyd is doing the thing.
So, and I don't know how true this is, but Steven Jackson was on, I think it was Undisputed, following, and so people talk about obviously Floyd and his spending. So from what I understand, his cars are part of his fight contracts.
What?
So he's not actually buying all these cars. That's part of his purse. So to think that he's, made a lot of money, but then it's taxed, but then he's going out and buying all these cars because it's an absurd amount of cars.
Yeah. And I like that they're all black, actually. I think that's pretty cool.
So allegedly, and I can't confirm this, but allegedly he keeps like duplicate fleets at his different homes.
What?
So in
That is
Vegas,
ridiculous.
so in Vegas they're black. I think in Miami's a different color, and I think maybe in somewhere else it's a different color.
So he's got one of each car in different colors.
Well, he has some of multiple.
Right. Well, one of each car, whatever make, model, whatever, in each house in different colors.
Correct.
That's the kind of money I'm trying. Oh, I mean, I like that type of money, but I don't think I would spend it like that.
But that's what I'm saying. I don't know how much of it he's actually spending.
Oh, yeah, because if it's part of the purse, then he's not spending anything.
And a lot of what you see him wear is his stuff. Like, he'll wear, obviously, the super fancy designer stuff, but generally speaking, like, he's wearing TMT stuff. And so I've just I've read a lot about his different ventures. We looked at the fitness, the boxing gym, which apparently is doing well. Obviously, as the Gentleman's Club,
Gentleman's Club? That's what we're calling it?
No, that's what it's called.
Oh.
There's a difference between strip club and gentleman's club based on what's shown. I haven't been, but that's just how I've been educated.
Okay.
But no, there's a bunch of other things he's doing. He has a roller skating ring.
Right, a roller skating ring. I think he said he had. Well, obviously
a bunch of investments on like real estate.
Mm-hmm. In Vegas, yeah.
Yeah.
He's just killing. Like I said, he's killing the game.
Yeah, he is.
So he might not be able to read
if
that's true or not.
Thing.
But them contracts be nice.
He got business sense. So definitely respect to him for that. And obviously he has a team and promotion company promotes him.
Right.
Gervonta
all of
Davis,
his fighters.
A bunch of other people. Puts his fighters on his card. Some of his fighters fought. Actually, one of his fighters had a huge upset over Jarrett Hurd, which we'll get to in a minute. But yeah, so shout out to Floyd. Shout out to the city of Miami for hosting. It will look to be a very great event, a safe event. I didn't hear of anything crazy, anything too crazy, which is
surprising for Miami.
Surprising, yeah, which we'll get into that as well. But we want to start with Chad Ochocinco, who actually played in Miami as a Dolphin, and
for a couple seasons.
I think it might have been one, maybe two. wasn't there long. But I was impressed. I was coming off the heels of the Nate Robinson fight, and these athletes that are good or great at another sport getting into boxing doesn't always go well.
No.
And I was pleasantly surprised. Like, I figured he would have good footwork because as a receiver, that was always his thing.
Yeah.
He's a good soccer player, so his feet I thought would be good. And I saw he had been training with the Charlo brothers in Houston.
And which it looked like that really paid off because he had a nice little jab on him. He was moving, and if he had been maybe 10 years younger and maybe had, hit the gym a little bit more, that jab would have been something fierce.
Because he jabbed, he threw a couple hooks, and there was one or two times he looked like he got upset.
Mm-hmm.
And he started throwing. And so now I was
beat my pretty
unlike the celebrity fight we just watched. There was no headgear. They were actually like fighting. And sometimes you let your guard down for just a moment. You're supposed to protect yourself at all times. And he got caught slipping. He got dropped. But I thought up until that point he had won every round. So even if you count that a 10-8 round, I still had him winning that fight.
Yeah, for sure.
So no, definitely was pleased to see that. A good entertainment. I thought the theme of the evening, as far as chasing your dreams, was motivational. It was inspirational. Regardless of what people thought about the fights, I thought it was a moment that people used their stage properly. The next fight was Jarrett Hurd's fight. And Jarrett Hurd's from the area. I've been a fan. I went to see him fight at, I think, George Mason.
Yeah.
When he lost to... He lost his title that night. He came out in Washington football team colors. Crowd was crazy, and he just didn't throw enough. And he took a bunch of punishment. And he
sounds familiar.
And to that point, he got a new trainer.
So this is a new trainer.
Yeah.
Since that fight.
Right.
That is sad.
And so I believe from watching it, he came out with a mindset. Mike Tyson says everybody has a plan until you get punched in the face. And his plan was to jab and be, you know, a better, more defensive fighter. He was trying to Philly shell, which is a Floyd, you know, what he's perfected. And that is not a good defense if you don't know what you're doing. It's not something you just pick up halfway through your career, even on the backside of your career. And he was just eating right after right after right, because you keep your hands down, but you're supposed to shoulder roll. And he didn't know how to do that. So he was getting his head beat in. And I think he finally realized, well, this isn't working. So let's go back to the old way. And the old way was take a bunch of punishment and try and overpower your opponent.
But I just don't, like you said, I'm sure he had a plan when he got in the ring. I'm sure his trainers, his new trainer, has tried to teach him new things to better defend himself. But just all around, it was, and obviously I'm not a boxing expert. I've really only started watching it since we've been together, honestly. Oh, that's not true. I've watched fights, but I've not watched as many as I have since we've been together. And it's like, I'm watching him, and I'm like, at minimum, just put your hands up. But his hands were down at his sides like 90% of the fight. And like, you're never going to win that way. Like, what are you doing? At minimum, keep your hands up. But he wouldn't even defend himself. He was just taking punishment. And I'm, looking at the screen like, what are you doing, bro? Just stop it. Somebody stop this fight. Just stop it. Because he clearly doesn't want to win. Yeah,
so I echo everything you said. Like, it was frustrating as someone, obviously I'm rooting for him. And it's similar to Adrian Broner, but from a different perspective. Adrian doesn't get hit, but he doesn't throw. Hurd wasn't really throwing a bunch, and he was getting hit.
I feel like Adrian, his defense is, I think that's what keeps him in fights for as long as he's in.
But that's why he keeps losing, because at some point you got to have some offense.
This is
and
true.
To Hurd's point, like, he had offense, but I think he ran into a similar issue with Floyd, but for different reasons. Because he landed some punches where normally he would break someone down. And that, I don't know if he was Mexican, Hispanic, I don't know what his background was.
Oh, no, dude was...
But he ate him. He kept going. And he didn't, get discouraged or anything like that. And when he kept coming forward, like, whether it was based on points, Hurd lost. And he said after the fight he thought he won. Go back and watch that tape, bro. You ain't win.
And that's the thing, like, even if you look at some of his older fights, that's why I was saying during the fight, he just needs new trainers. He needs new people. And I didn't realize that he got them. He's like, so these people ain't working either. Or at this point, your fundamentals are so flawed, there's really not a whole lot anybody's going to be able to do for you. Right. And it might be looking like early retirement. Because, again, you can't keep taking that type of punishment and expect to have a long career. Floyd Mayweather has been able to maintain the longevity that he has because he don't take beatings. Everybody calls it when we'll talk about this, when we talk about his fight. But, like, everybody likes to say that, he's boring, doesn't knock people out, blah, 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 blah. It's like, no, you don't have to win a fight that way for it to be a great fight to watch. And Floyd, and he'll tell you real quick, if I can get in the ring and not get beat up, why am I gonna stand around and get beat up? Like, and then take home more than what most people will ever see in their entire life for 30 minutes of boxing.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. I don't subscribe to that idea that I need to be in a war because I'm a boxer.
Absolutely not.
The name of the game is to hit, not get hit.
Right.
And Jarrett, I don't know, to your point, I don't know if it's a new coach, I don't know if it's a new trainer. I don't know if you're just, at this point in your life, this is how you fight. But I've never really seen him get really busted. He didn't look awful, and I've seen him on social media since then. He looks relatively fine. But internally, I can't imagine that that's beneficial.
It can't be.
And the older you get, that's not the way to go.
I mean, at that point, you're looking at concussions, you're looking at brain injuries.
Right.
Like, there's all sorts of side effects that they don't talk about in boxing that happen because of the prolonged trauma repeatedly,
And brains are really hard to diagnose because you can't, like,
crack it open and look at it.
Like, typically, especially with the NFL concussion lawsuit, a lot of that came because people were dead.
Yeah.
And so then they could take the brain out of the body and examine it. Can't do that while you're alive. So prayers to him. Shout out to him. He looks like he's doing okay, but we got to do something different, bro. One, you need to win. And two, the way you're losing it is even the way you were winning was hard to watch, but in your losses, it looks even worse. So then we got the Migos performance, which I did not expect. I didn't know they had a Floyd connection.
Yeah. Well, see, and originally when they were coming out, because who did it? Oh, Logan.
Yeah.
He came out to his little music, which was really interesting.
I don't know where that came from.
I have no idea where it came from. We don't know who it was.
No.
We can't tell you. If you
Don't
didn't
really
watch
care.
the fight, it's all right. You didn't miss anything. But then when the Migos came out, and I think I was in the kitchen or I was doing something, so I heard it and I'm like, oh, well, Floyd's coming out. Let me go sit back down. And I was like, oh, there is no Floyd.
No.
It's just them walking down the ramp, rapping their new song. And I'm good with promo. The album comes out soon.
They came out today. Well, it came out Friday.
Friday, right.
So I definitely think that was the reason they were there. I just didn't expect them to be there. But
Takeoff is so weird. Just everything about him to me is it's just awkward.
So I'm not gonna lie. Outside of Quavo, I don't know the difference between the two.
Yes, you do. You know who Offset is.
If you
Offset
put him
is
in
the
a
one
line,
with Cardi.
I know who he's married to, but if you put him in a
Can't
lineup,
tell them apart.
I probably wouldn't know who's who. And I'm okay with that.
It took me the longest time to know his name.
Oh, Takeoff?
Yeah,
Oh.
because
They're all cousins, right?
I have no idea.
They're related.
I don't feel like that's no.
Yeah, they're related.
Says who? Where you read that at?
I heard that.
From where?
The internet, I think.
The internet. The internet's not all true.
So you think they just found each other?
Yeah, or they're
No,
friends.
they're related.
They're related.
We can
Google
confirm
it
that or something.
Whatever. It's not that.
But I'm pretty sure they're related. But go ahead.
But yeah, just Takeoff. I guess I could see Takeoff and Offset being related. They look similar. He's just weird to me.
Yeah, we're trying to look it up.
Yeah, look at these names.
They're directly related and were raised together. Quavo is Takeoff's uncle, and
Huh?
Offset is Quavo's cousin.
How is
Quavo's
How old is Takeoff?
what?
How old is Quavo?
He's his uncle?
Stop reading the internet. The internet be lying.
It's true. It has to be.
He said it has to be.
I have no idea. This is all news to me. They have some very interesting government names. We won't put that out there. That's for you guys to figure out. I'm trying to see.
He was born in 91.
Quavo's only 30.
This is so off point.
Yeah, I know.
But
Just
I'm really
bear with
confused.
And he's Offset is Quavo's cousin. So he's Takeoff's uncle. Takeoff's 26. I didn't know he was that young.
He don't look that young.
Because they've been out since 2008. So he was out when he was a teenager. I did not know that. And
Learn something new every day.
Offset is 29 as well. Okay.
I mean, I knew they were young. I just didn't think. That's interesting.
Very
I just leave it.
It kind of explains a lot in some ways.
That gene pool is.
So back to where we were. But shout out to them. I have not got a chance to listen to the new album yet. I will plan
got some
to
cool
do
features
so.
on there. Future, Justin Biebs.
I mean,
Cardi's on there.
As long as it's been, I would expect some
Culture 3.
Yeah. So shout out to them. I will, like I said, do my job to listen to that, and probably in the next pod we'll have some insight, or we might do a special pod in relation to it. We'll figure it out. It's not a big deal. But with that being said, the final fight. We'll skip the third fight because it wasn't that great. It was a walkover. It was a blowout. Floyd. I mean, it wasn't competitive. And I like Badu Jack. I'm glad he finally got a knockout win because he's got robbed a bunch of times.
Yeah.
But so Floyd came out with Moneybag Yo. Also, did not expect that. Didn't know that connection.
But the song was super appropriate.
The song was very appropriate, so it made sense. again, Floyd, marketing genius, doing what Floyd does. Apparently he made $30 million before he stepped in the ring just off the placement of his trunk sponsorships. So getting that bag as usual. I was not as upset as everyone else.
Like literally the whole world was pissed.
And so what is odd to me, or the biggest thing for me is Floyd is 44.
Mm-hmm.
He's never weighed more than probably 160 pounds in his life.
Mm-hmm.
And he's fighting a man that's, everybody I've ever met, or everyone I've ever known that's met Floyd or seen Floyd says he's really small.
He is.
Not just in weight, but in height. And he's fighting some 6 foot heavyweight. Like, I think people just take that for granted. He's fighting a heavyweight at 44.
Again, like when after the fight and we were talking about it and just looking at the comments on social media, I feel like a big part of it, of like the misconception of how Floyd did or how the fight went, is that people did not understand that. Like, they know Floyd.
And did they look at it? Like, it was like Godzilla and some other guy. Like, it was
Goliath is
what
Samiro said.
Like, it was a huge difference in body type, and one guy was like half the age of the other one.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
For what it's worth, Logan Paul isn't a schlub. Like, he was in really good shape. He was
jacked up.
He was in, I guess, in high school or whatever. Yeah. He was a wrestler and he was an athlete. And, like, he seriously wants to box. So, like, he was training just like everybody else was training. And, like, he ain't walking just, oh, I rolled out of bed and I'm about to fight Floyd Mayweather. Like, he came in ready to go.
And so I don't know if anyone's ever been in a fight before. But I personally am technically a heavyweight. But I would not want to fight an in-shape heavyweight.
Absolutely
at
not.
5'6", and like 200 something pounds. Like, and for him to be at 155 pounds, they said, the likelihood of him knocking a young man out he's had hand problems. He hasn't been a knockout puncher in a long time. Granted, he did end up knocking Conor McGregor out, but that was because that went 10 rounds and Conor was gassed.
Yeah.
That was like 3 or 4 years ago.
That was still, he still had some years back.
So.
Then. And then Conor McGregor was older.
And Conor was old. Good point. And he's been getting knocked out, so his body
he was trash.
So I didn't understand the expectation that Floyd was going to drop this man. Like, that's just not realistic. Floyd's never fought anyone that big in his entire life, and he's doing that at the end of his life. I think
career.
Well, yeah, career, fighting career. And for what it's worth, Floyd make your money, but the difference between the Conor fight and this fight was technically Floyd got old. And I think that was the bigger of the takeaways for me. It's not that he couldn't knock him out. He got hit more by somebody that trained a little bit, but probably shouldn't have been able to hit him at that level of frequency. He didn't get hard, but he did eat some punches and
woke him up a little bit.
He was also very lazy. Like, he didn't jab his way in. He just tried to walk through it. And so I think for a lot of reasons we didn't see, obviously, the best Floyd. But I don't know what people were expecting. Like,
people were expecting for him to get in the ring and knock him out. And I, like you said, like, I don't understand that. That's never been the kind of fighter that Floyd was.
Not in the last 15 years.
Right. Definitely. And especially, like, even towards the end of his professional career,
right,
he wasn't knocking people out. Mm-hmm. The fight was going however many rounds, and Floyd would win because Floyd threw more accurate punches.
Which he did in this fight. He still landed half his punches.
Yeah, he did. And considering Logan was, bless his heart, he was flailing his arms, he was hugging him, holding him. Like, he was just, I think Logan, for what it's worth, he realized how much work it really is to fight somebody.
And so people were complaining about the hugging and stuff like that.
Nah, that
Do you know what it's like to be 150 pounds and somebody laying 200 pounds of dead weight on you and you having to hold that up? Like, that's exhausting.
He was covered in his sweat by like the third round.
So I just...
Because he came out and his hair was all coiffed and cute and fluffy.
Nah.
By the end of the second round, it was like dripping sweat.
Yeah.
It was just hilarious. But people were upset. And I was convinced the people that were upset weren't real boxing fans.
And I don't know how much of Floyd fans are, because the McGregor fight I think was $100. And this was half that. So to see Floyd for $50 was actually a deal. When I heard it was $49, whatever it was, I was like, oh, we definitely get that.
And some Floyd fights were more than $100.
Yeah, or you had the HD version versus standard definition, which, to your point, it costs more.
Right, and then when we went to the fight party in Vegas that one year when we went out there for his fight,
that was me, by the way.
Oh.
I wasn't there with her. I don't know who she was with, but I was
with Gina.
Oh, okay.
Gina and my old coworkers. We went out to Vegas for the Mayweather fight. He fought, I think, Pacquiao.
That was a great weekend.
It was a great weekend. We had a lot of fun. And the fight party, it wasn't even at the MGM. The fight party, we stayed at the Bellagio. The fight party we went to was at the Bellagio. And the tickets for that were like $250 each.
$250?
Yeah.
To go watch the fight?
To go watch the fight. On a TV. Oh, it was like a big, cool projector thing. They had like 4 of them across the room. Per person. And then we paid VIP, so we got drinks and...
So it was $250 with the drinks and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, to that point, what they talked about, I think, on the fight night, but the impact that people like Floyd and even like LeBron when he went to Cleveland have on the local economy.
Oh, it's crazy.
Floyd don't see none of that. So, but them hotels ate. And they was talking about when people... I think it was on the JBP podcast where they were talking about flights to Vegas are typically not super expensive. But
on a fight weekend?
But
stupid.
Because Floyd always fought around the same times, pre-planned that they would already jack the price up double or triple because they knew what was
hotels,
coming. Right.
So after the fight party, we didn't bother to try to leave the hotel because the strip was crazy packed. And you've been to Vegas and you know that the Bellagio entrance, you walk out and it's right there on the strip. We stood there at the entrance of the Bellagio trying to get out for like 20 minutes and we were like, nah, it's cool. So we went to a party inside. That's where I saw Travis Barker. And we went inside. We went to a club on the inside of there. And the only reason we paid, I think, $40 each to get in there was because we were staying there. And again, we our room was VIP, so we were able to pay a discounted price. But had it not been, we would not have gone into that club.
Goodness gracious.
I think Jamie Foxx was there that night too, but we didn't want to pay his prices.
So you went to see what, Travis
Barker. Travis did a show, yeah. Jamie Foxx was just hosting. And I think
So hosting but not performing?
Yeah. Oh, and he might have performed.
You don't know.
I don't know.
Hey.
I caught my friends to go see Travis Barker. I didn't care about Jamie Foxx.
Jamie back.
I've seen Jamie live before, and I'd never seen Travis Barker, so.
Yeah. When he first came out with music, I had no idea he could even sing.
What? Didn't you listen to him sing on the Jamie Foxx show?
Yeah, but I didn't take it seriously.
No.
So, cool. So, that brings us to the fight that we saw Friday night where Lamar Odom and Aaron Carter fought each other. And it was the antithesis of the Floyd fight where it was this massive big black man fighting this really, really small... Well, Aaron Carter's 6 feet. But this really small, frail white man.
Oh my God.
And everything... And so I'm not... Shout out to them for putting on a show. Shout out to them for getting whatever amount of money that they made. But
at least Aaron Carter did. He did. Oh
man. So the venue was full. But what a show. Excuse us. This is very unprofessional.
Yo, we'll put clips up if you're watching us on YouTube.
We'll try and find some clips. I don't know.
Put some clips
technically
up.
it was supposed to be a pay-per-view, but...
Goodness gracious.
Yeah, so Aaron Carter came out with a bunch of really tough-looking black guys. Had some nice trap music. He has all these face tattoos. I've not seen the man in years.
Oh, he looks awful.
Yes, I will agree. I was going to say anything, but he looked bad. They said he'd been clean for 4 years.
He ain't look like it.
They said his addiction was he used to huff aerosol can smoke.
He did more than that.
That's just what they were reporting. So shout out to him for beating that. I will say it looks like it had some lasting effects. And Lamar Odom was not in great shape either, but he's a former basketball player, so I think he naturally will probably have some veil of athleticism. And it was 3 minute-and-a-half rounds.
Right.
And Chuck Liddell was the guest referee.
Do we know who this organization was? Because,
it's celebrity boxers. I think they're like a thing.
So, so this is, and I think it's
Peter
new.
Gunn's fought. He's the owner, but he's 52.
Right.
And he fought earlier in the night.
Right. And so this is a new, celebrity boxing organization thing, and I guess they'll be putting out more fights in the future. But Peter Gunn's,
forget who he fought.
I was going to say who he fought. I was going to say, old school rapper Peter Gunn's.
Yeah.
Is one of the founders.
You know the guy with the real wide neck? That was a meme? The guy from Florida?
Yeah.
He fought.
Oh, God.
Apparently got beat up.
I really don't need to watch this again. Cause
go ahead.
Just the Aaron Carter fight alone.
My goodness.
My
man was spinning around in 360s.
I'm not in this. I feel like it's mean spirited to make fun of people sometimes. But if there are any memes that appear on social media anytime soon, they do not do it justice how hilarious it was to watch him fight Lamar Odom. All that laughter a second ago, that was not unwarranted. Y'all, it was Lamar Odom is 8 feet tall. And every bit of him was just knocking this poor little boy all over the ring. And Aaron, and I will take my hat off to him because he had so much fight in him. He would get up off the floor and just keep swinging. I'm sure he had a plan.
Yeah. And there was about 10 seconds. He started wailing. He was swinging, but he could barely hit Lamar.
But he had to jump
because he was so small.
He had to jump up to even reach Lamar's face. But they had on headgear, so every time Lamar went down, the headgear would be all shifted. And it was just, I don't know who paired them up, but that person deserves a raise, a promotion or something. They need a bonus and a check. Because that was probably the funniest thing I've seen in a very long time.
Yeah.
That was funnier than Coming to America.
Wow. But it was a strong. So Lamar Odom knocked him out in the second round. So probably about 2 minutes total time. He knocked him out.
Yeah. But then Aaron was he was trying to get up. It's like he thought about it.
Chuck Liddell was asking you good? And he was like,
nah.
He was on his knees
he shook his head. No, okay. I don't want to do this no more. I'm done. Just tell him the fight's over. And Chuck Liddell calls it. And shout out to Chuck Liddell. He's done so many other little cool things since he retired from MMA. And I've always liked him. I thought it was pretty cool. Yeah, him and Forrest Griffin, I think, were my favorite fighters, MMA-wise.
Man, it was something to see. So shout out to them for putting that on. I feel like they missed an opportunity with marketing because I heard about it a long time ago, but leading up to it, I just happened to see it. Thank God for Twitter and its news that it was even happening. So I quickly, actually, who was? Ice.
Really?
Tweeted about it. Officially Ice from the Joe Budden podcast was talking about Peter Gunn's fight. I was like, Peter? what is he talking about? And so then I, let Twitter do what it does, and then I was like, oh, I forgot this is tonight. Or
and somebody was streaming it, and
then
thank you
the
for
internet
the
was
internet
going.
And
I tried to do that for the Floyd fight, and they shut that down real fast.
Real fast.
So apparently, YouTube is a better idea to go live than Facebook, because Facebook didn't last long at all.
Yeah, it was like 30 seconds in.
I haven't actually tried to go live since because it was blocked. So I got to see if they lifted that ban.
Yeah, you should look at that.
But yeah, some entertainment there over the last week. And for all of that, I wish more people would settle things in the boxing ring. But sadly, we have had a string of incidents specifically, and we're going to focus on hip hop. And I'll take a quick diversion because I don't know if you were familiar with, and hopefully this doesn't take too long because it's definitely not in line with really what we want to get into completely. But there was a man, I don't know what I want to call him right now.
Ryan?
No, he's innocent until proven guilty, but he shot the little boy.
Ryan.
Is Ryan?
Ryan something. Let me not. His name was Ryan. Okay. I can't pronounce his last name.
And so the kid, quick story, and we might take more time on this later. But the kid, I guess, went to get his bike from the man's yard. Mm-hmm. The man came out with a sledgehammer initially, the kid was saying, and tried to swing it, missed. And so then, the kids were running, and he shot the kid. And the kid has to be, 8? If that?
If that. He's like the same age as Courtney.
Yeah. And initially, he was out on bond of $10,000. Once the interviews and the world, and thank you for the internet, got wind of it, what I understand is he's now been locked back up.
Oh yeah, the prosecutor's office apparently did not know that the judge was going to release him on such a low bail. So they petitioned for a higher bail, considering, and then it was like a stay away order, but he was going back home, which was 2 doors down from where the little boy lives on the same street. He's had issues with neighbors in the neighborhood before. I saw it. I was pissed. It's just because I think I saw it. I did. I saw it originally on Instagram. And just because I don't always trust the way stories are presented on Instagram, mm-hmm. I looked up the actual story online through the news station, and I played the newsreel about it. And on Instagram though, how you swipe and there's more to the story or whatever, the next video that was queued up in the Instagram feed was Joe Biden signing the anti-Asian hate bill or whatever that bill was. And then the caption was interesting. I'm not going to repeat it just because it's,
what?
Not flagrant, but really poignant to the point of how a lot of people feel about the administration, how they've handled things, how they championed all these black causes. She's a black VP. She's,
we talked about it last pod.
Yeah, she's
still waiting for that lift every voice.
Half immigrant, or whatever you want to call it.
She doesn't want to go to the border now.
And it's just a lot. And when I voted for him, I said, I'm gonna be pissed off if they don't do even half the things that they said they were gonna do. And it doesn't look like they're even gonna do a quarter of those things. Meanwhile, inflation is getting ridiculous.
I just posted today that the average price for a car is the highest it's been in over a decade. So cars are high, houses are high, materials are high. No one wants to work.
Gas is high. They've got all this vaccine that they've paid for that people don't want to take, but then they want to send, 500 million doses to underserved countries.
Yeah. Meanwhile, they're having an emergency meeting on June 18th because those heart issues are a little bit more than the 6 people. Now it's well over 200 that they're reporting.
It's ridiculous.
So if it's 200, it's probably a lot more than that.
And that's the thing, like I was having this conversation with someone about why I was uncomfortable about getting the vaccine. And the heart inflammation thing was a big sticking point to me.
The changing of the DNA is a big sticking point for me.
Well, technically, it doesn't change the DNA. Technically, it does not change your code, like your DNA. It does do things to your DNA, but it does not change. It does not, misinform people.
So what do you call that? What is it doing to your DNA?
I'm not a doctor, so I can't explain. I can show you an article.
Well, my DNA was one way, and then you inject this thing that alters it even slightly. To me, that's changing it. So no, it may not. Change, metamorphosize it or something.
Metamorphosize.
I don't know what the technical term is, but
oh man,
I'm not with it.
No, and I'm not with it either. And
then you got people like Johnson & Johnson, who's definitely a trustworthy
company.
I
would never.
Which, ironically enough, the heart inflammation is not from the Johnson & Johnson. It's from the Moderna and Pfizer.
And that's the crazy thing, because Johnson & Johnson had to pull, they had to pull theirs briefly. And I wouldn't have trusted Johnson & Johnson anyway. Like, how does baby powder give you cancer? We're just not going to go there. But everyone's like, the Pfizer and the Moderna is super safe. It's super safe. It doesn't do anything.
So
There's no side effects.
2 shots.
There's no side effects. It's perfect. And now all these reports are coming back that it's not perfect.
And the Pfizer, I was told you might got to get a 3rd shot because they don't know how.
Right, because of the Delta variant. Look, y'all, this is not what this episode is about.
I didn't even get it.
Because we're pissed off.
The kid got shot. And now we're talking about.
And Ms. Harris.
And we need to, at some point, have a COVID pod, which I've mentioned, but we haven't.
Yeah.
So scrap all that. Back to gun violence. So a couple episodes ago, we talked about our trip to Miami. And we were right on Ocean Drive, had a really good time, took some great naps, walked in some
really good naps.
Just ridiculous heat. All around pretty much good, chill vibe for the most part. Lots of cars, lots of music, all that jazz. And literally blocks away from where we were, it's been maybe a week or 2 now.
Since we were there?
No.
Since the incident happened?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, we was there at the beginning of last month.
And you still haven't unpacked one of your suitcases. But,
just put me on blast like that.
And I won't use full names, but an associate of a rapper has been charged because at one of the most upscale, fancy, where who's who goes to eat, there was a shooting. And from what I understand, someone was shot twice. I don't believe anyone died. I may need to double check that or fact check that, but no one died there. However, we talked briefly, and we didn't get into it a lot on I think it was the last podcast we talked about the DMX album. So we talked about the Lil Baby and Lil Durk album briefly. But rest in peace to Lil Durk's brother who was killed in Chicago. D-Thang, I believe is how it's said. I have not listened to his music, but obviously I've listened to Durk. And then shortly in a similar time frame from all of this, a up-and-coming rapper, many of you may be familiar with, Pooh Shiesty, was at a strip club. And from what I understand in my research is that he had about $40,000 in his pocket. The money got knocked out of his pocket. There was a form of an altercation. The security guard was actually trying to tell him, like, hey, you're not supposed to have guns in here, like, put the gun away. And one thing led to another, and he allegedly shot the security guard, and apparently this is all on camera.
Killed.
The security guard died?
I believe so.
Oh, that's a whole different charge. I thought he shot him in the leg or something.
Oh, no, I thought conflicting stories, but I thought I read that he
killed you can shoot someone in the leg and die.
Yeah.
But if that's the case, then that's really bad, or worse than even the initial. So really the point, and we wanted to start with something light, but for us, I think we have a responsibility to, we've talked about the quote unquote evil whites and the issues with racism in this country, and I've been very critical of a variety of different people. But I think what also needs to happen, in my opinion, is we do also have to look in the mirror as Black people and figure out, one, we have to be better, but two, bigger than that, is figure out why we are where we are. And specifically in relation to where impacts, I would say, me and I believe you the most, is the hip hop culture. And so this goes back all the way to at least Biggie and Tupac, Shine, and others, that gun violence has been so prevalent in that culture, but it's also glamorized and glorified in that culture in a way that I don't see. I don't listen to a bunch of country. I don't listen to a bunch of alternative rock, hard rock. They got, I'm sure, their own set of issues. But Garth don't be trying to kill Tony and Kenny. Like, I don't hear that in their music. They might drink a lot of beer.
Whiskey.
They may play their guitars. They may not treat women the best, and the women definitely don't feel like the men are any good. Because all the country women songs I be hearing, they be dogging men. That's just my brief introduction.
Cowboy.
And all your exes live in Texas. But that's kind of the gist of it versus the hip hop culture. And so I guess the first question I kind of want to pose is, like, how did we get here? Like, who do you feel is to blame for that, if anyone?
I guess it's hard to place the blame in any one place.
That makes sense.
Because artists are going to create things that they relate to. In the last pod, we talked about the passion, the things that are driving them. A lot of these artists come from underserved neighborhoods. They grew up a certain way. They were involved in a lot of different things, streets, however you want to put it. So first off, they're going to rap about what they know. And if that's the life they were living, and that's what they're the most passionate about, and they really want to get out of that life, there's going to be a lot of passion behind what they're saying. And so that's what they're going to rap about. That's what they're going to make music about. And the consumer, a lot of the people who are listening, are people who are living the same life. They are the people who most relate to a lot of the things that the rapper, that the artist is saying. And then, I won't necessarily say it's the record labels and the machine behind the music, but they know what sells. There is this show on HBO a long time ago called Deaf Poetry. Mm-hmm. There was a poet by the name of Black Ice, and in one of his poems he was like, they're still flooding our streets, our neighborhoods with thugs, drugs, and killing. They're just using record labels to do it. And so we've talked about the crack epidemic. We've talked about drug usage in Black community. And while it's not as rampant and, insane as it once was, it's still being consumed by people in the neighborhood, people not even in the neighborhood, it's still being consumed because we listen to it all the time. I don't do drugs. Like, the only time I've ever held a gun was like shooting in a gun range with my dad, like any of that type of thing. But I listen to it. I enjoy it. Like, T.I. used to be my dude, and I ain't never trapped house nothing, but it's what sells. And if you, I'm not gonna say are easily influenced by, because we all have our influences and things that push us one way or another, depending on all of the influences in your life. But if all you're consuming is drugs, violence, killing, blah, 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 you're going to be more desensitized to it actually happening. If all you see around you is drugs, killing, violence, you're going to be more desensitized to it. So it makes you more susceptible to doing it. So it's just a whole cycle, a whole vicious cycle that we're perpetually in that nobody seems to know how to stop. Because even like to T.I., we'll jump back there. He doesn't make that kind of music anymore, but all the music he makes now is whack.
Well, he just had the diss song about all the people accusing him.
I mean, yeah, and he did that. But, and like, it's not that I don't take him seriously, because T.I. is a fairly intelligent person. Like, he does speak out.
He uses big words. I don't know how intelligent he is. Some of his stances I don't agree with.
I agree, but he's man enough and bold enough to stand on them. Like, you know, a lot of people will go whichever the way the wind blows.
Okay, that's fair. I don't think that makes you intelligent, but I get your point.
It's kind of hard to take him seriously though. Like, you're telling but that's also growth. Like, you have been to court, you've been to jail, you've been back to court, you've been back to jail. Like, the only reason why you are where you are right now is because you had a successful rap career and TV and white people like you. Like, that's why you are where you are. The difference between you and the average corner boy is all of that money and all of that access. And the average corner boy does not have all of that. So when they get hit with a gun charge, when they get hit with a murder rap, like, everybody pats Bobby Shmurda on the back, but he was super young when he went to jail. He just got out. And fortunately enough, he went in with one of the biggest records of the year, and people loved him and they still support him. So he was able to come out to a good situation. But that's not what happens for the average black man.
Correct.
They get out of jail, and then it's difficult for them to find employment. So then they end up back in the same cycle that they just, and put them in prison for. So like I said, it's like the whole system is just a vicious cycle, and it's all broken. I don't think you can place the blame in any one place.
That's fair. So I agree with your final premise. I do think it's multifaceted. There's a couple points I kind of disagree with, in that you said at one point, I guess the people that listen to it are people that relate to it. And like you said, you listen to T.I., you didn't relate to it. When we grew up, ringtone rap and a lot of those hits weren't made for black people. People were marketing to the little white kids. We talked about the DMX performance. Was it at Coachella?
No, it was at
I forget where it was.
It was in New York.
Yeah,
Nope, Glastonbury's not here.
I can't think of the name of it. But
Woodstock.
Yeah, there you go. And it was a ton of white people.
And
they
like
knew
90% white people.
From the video, it was all white. But they knew all the words. And the same was with the Lil Waynes, the T.I.s, and when we grew up, I saw white people with Snowman t-shirts on. And I don't think they had any idea what it meant or what it resembled. And that's a whole different conversation of white people and black culture. But in this instance, I do think there's blame to go all around. But I do you said you don't put a lot on labels. But I do. I think labels do know what sells. But I also believe that what sells is where the money is. Because I think there's a bunch of artists today and over the course of history that have not been the best, but they got the most funding. And as long as you get the funding and you got the machine behind you, you'll keep making hit records. They'll put you with the best writers. They'll put you with the best producers. They will give you the best rollouts and money behind your platform. In essence, you almost have to just completely screw it up to fail.
To fail, yeah.
And so I put a lot of that aspect on them. But then we also have the aspect of people celebrate Bobby for not snitching and kill Tekashi for being a rat and a snitch. And I subscribe to that. I think what also goes along with that is authenticity. And when it comes to rap, for some reason, and again, I can't speak on other cultures, but I don't feel like authenticity is as big of a thing. You can't talk street, gang, gun rap and not really be about it. When you do that, you're a wankster, you're a faker.
Wankster.
I mean, that was back then. You're quote unquote, if you don't have all the money, you're a window shopper. Like, we villainize and demonize people that fake it, that all the money you got in your pocket is what you're putting on the internet. And so, as a culture, specifically with rap and hip hop, you have to put on as if you've made it, as if you haven't. And many of these people rap, and there's been this stigmatism that security makes you weak. And if you roll with a bunch of security guys, like Floyd has a bunch of security, or early when 50, like, he would wear bulletproof vests because he didn't have security. 50 got a little older, 50 got him some security.
Facts.
We just saw at the basketball game, I don't know if you saw this, but Kevin Durant and PJ Tucker got into it, and Kevin Durant's personal security ran on the court and pushed PJ Tucker. Like, security is there for a reason. We talked about Kim Kardashian, what happened with her in Paris, and now she just had to get a restraining order because somebody mailed her a Plan B pill and something else. Like, people are crazy. And we live in a society today where life is not valued.
Yeah.
And people will take your life no matter what you're doing. You look at what Nipsey was doing for his community, trying to give back, trying to build, trying to educate, and they took his life. Pop Smoke was up and coming. They took his life. There's been too many to name.
Countless.
Of people that are trying to make it, and they're being taken from us over the dumbest of things. And I think there's a big part of this is education. And to a certain extent, I think I have to blame the rappers that make it. Like, there has to be some kind of education that Jay-Z did it this way. Jeezy did it this way. Gucci did it this way. T.I. did it this way. But you don't have to do it this way. There are other avenues. We look at like YBN Cordae, and he's talked about how he's invested. You look at someone like Ludacris, who's been very successful without having to really live and talk that lifestyle. You can be nice with the pen and not have to perpetuate and talk about or even live that lifestyle. Like, people kill people like Drake and Kanye for potentially ghostwriters, and that, undercuts their ability as artists. Who cares? At this point, like, Jay-Z wrote Forgot About Dre for both Dre and Snoop. Like, who cares? Like, I'm really getting to a point where I'm exhausted because these young, and what isn't mentioned was the baby's associate was 21. Pooh Shiesty's 21. Dirk's brother, I think, was in his 20s. These are young black people. I think Nipsey might have been in his 30s.
Yeah.
Tupac and Biggie were young.
They were young.
And there's just there's a bunch of people. I don't want to feel like I'm leaving people out. But I think we're at a point where we need to evolve. And I'm someone that is somewhat torn because I've grown up on it. I've loved the drug rap. I've loved the gangster talk. I've loved all that. I've supported it with my money. I've gone to the shows. I appreciate the art. I appreciate hearing about the struggle. But at some point, you got to get to a place where you can say, that's who I was. That's what I did. But I'm not that anymore. And hire people that can carry guns legally. There's no reason Lil Wayne should need a pardon from President Trump at the time because you're still carrying a gun. You're worth well over $100 million. Why are you still carrying a gun?
Yeah.
Like, that's just a lack of education. That's a lack of preparation. It's just so many faults on so many levels that I feel like that's the big part that's missing. It's the money aspect from the label side, but then it's the education part from the community. But we gotta explain to these people, and as consumers, we have a role too. Because if we continue to buy these albums of these people, you know what happened when we didn't like what R. Kelly was doing? We stopped buying his music. We stopped streaming his music. When we have these situations of stuff that's going on that we don't like, stop supporting it. You have someone like Chance. You have somebody like Kanye who's changed, who's evolved. If the music's still good, and I'm not the hugest Chance fan, but I think he's solid. Or even when Lil Baby was on the Kirk song, which I thought was really dope. We gotta evolve. Someone like J. Cole, I really appreciated his last album. He had the attitude of someone that was tough, and this isn't a slight, but he communicated in a way that was still effective, but not detrimental to the culture.
So, quick question, because we talked about this in the last pod, separating the artist from the art, and do you hold the artist accountable for the type of music they make or the things that they're putting in their music? And in that podcast, you said you can separate the artist from the art, and you have no problem listening to the music as long as the music is good. But right now you're saying, I can't really separate it because this thing is detrimental to this community and it makes me feel away, so I need something to change.
Not entirely. So my point is, I think the artist is separate from the art, and I would like there to be more separation. I would rather them not actually carry the guns that they rap about. I would actually rather them not actually kill the people that they say they're killing, or they say, if you run up on me, I'll blow your brains out. Like that. I'm just saying that's a general lyric.
Yeah.
I would rather that not be the reality. But if it is the reality, I'm not going to stop I have not chosen to stop listening to that music. And so as a consumer, that is on me, because I'm still streaming that, and I don't listen to a lot of that music, but if I choose to stream, I really wanted to listen to the Migos album before, because they have historically talked about things similar in that nature. If you're talking about smoking weed or whatever you do, I'm not, that's fine with me. If you talk about selling drugs, I'm not going to kill you for that. I've been around that, I've seen that is a part of culture. The murder aspect.
So for you, that's the hard line.
Well, I'm saying I still listen to it, and I still support people that rap that way. What I'm saying is, I would rather them find another thing to rap about. And how that happens, I think, is where collectively I play a role, labels play a role, and the artists that have made it play a role, and then the artists themselves play a role. And so, like Conway and Griselda, they're growing, their influence is growing, and that's where they're at. That's what they talk about. That is their life, and we talked when we were kind of going over this topic of censorship. And so it's not to say that you can't tell your story. And for newer artists, I think it's hard because the beat sounds a certain way. It puts you in a certain type of mood, and you write your experience. I think for me, the bigger part is, I don't need you to live the life that you rap about anymore. I would say that's the change for me.
And that's just the thing, most of these artists, especially with the way that the deals have been structured and are still structured now, they don't see money until they start touring. They don't really blow up until they're a couple albums in. So a lot of times, it's not even that they're not still living that life. They are still in the streets. I can't think of the rapper, he wasn't super famous yet, he wasn't super popular, but he had an open investigation against him. And the reason why they were able to lock him up was because in a song, an idiot, and I don't know why you would do this, like you said, he said, I did this, and this. This is how it happened. Basically, a whole confession. They used that in court, and the kid got locked up.
Which they only do in hip hop, by the way. There's a law that they can use your lyrics against you, but it's defined to rap.
Which is not cool. I completely agree with.
But until, to your point, I'm with you on that. And I think it's obviously idiotic if you're selling drugs to tell them that you're selling drugs and where you're selling them. But I think the part for me that is the bothersome is the murder part, the gun carrying part. If that is your lifestyle because you haven't made it, you're in a bad deal, you haven't got your advance or whatever, and you have to hustle to make it, I'm not killing people for hustling. I'm saying maybe you can't go certain places. If where you go requires you to carry a gun, and in the event that you are carrying that gun, you have to use that gun, there needs to be an education to say you don't need to be there. Unless they're paying you to be there, you don't need to be there. And if they're paying you to be there, then they need to be able to provide the security for you to be there. We talked about a while ago when Meek came out and 6ix9ine was out there. That shouldn't happen. That should not happen. And fortunately, they both had a bunch of security there that nothing really happened.
Yeah, just a lot of loud talking.
But to a lesser artist who may not have had the security, that could have went way left. And that, to me, is where we gotta find some kind of common ground, because it is really tough. It's bad enough to see cops killing young black men. But young black men dying, especially of the stature of these young black men. Like, these are next level people that, and I think we're seeing a lot of, if you can make enough money in this rap business, then the education is there. We look at people like Joe, we look at Ludacris, we look at Jeezy who's changed, we look at even Gucci and Fat Joe who's done different speeches, and 50 Cent and what he's doing on TV with Power and all the spinoffs. If you can make it out, there are lanes and levels that you can get to, but they're not making it out. And so we look at Migos. We look at Lil Baby, who's real hot right now. Like, I look at someone like Lil Durk and what he's rapped about, and 6ix9ine, like the clown he is, was talking trash about Durk's brother dying. But Durk's MO is, if you hit us, we hit back.
Right.
And so now my concern, and naturally I understand where it comes from and where he's feeling, his brother just got murdered. What is his response? So are we about to lose another one? Whether it be to jail or to the streets. Like, he talked about buying up where King Vaughn's neighborhood, O Block. Like, the mindset is right. But if you're still walking around carrying guns and you're still using those guns, you're not going to get that opportunity. And that's the gap we got to bridge.
And so, I guess my question is, where do you start? Because it's not for lack of programs and outreach, and I mean, this is me just playing devil's advocate. I lived in the hood, like, as an older person, just because, I was there. I wasn't of the hood, I was just there.
Mm-hmm.
I was visiting. And I didn't fit in. Like, I knew I didn't fit in. But even when I was living there, like, I saw, stuff. But then I also saw churches that kept their doors open late for kids to come in and hang out and do their homework, their community centers, their after-school programs, their sports, their like, we just watched this in City on a Hill. The kid's mom, like, she was the most, she secured funding for a whole neighborhood so that the projects wouldn't stay the projects. But her oldest son was the drug dealer and screwing up the neighborhood, basically. He was gunned down by police. And then, because the younger son was involved in a shooting that killed other people, he goes to jail and dies in jail. And this woman is a pillar of the community, trying to uplift the community, and couldn't even save her own kids from the community.
Yeah.
So it's like, there are resources out there. And I don't think it's a lack of education that the resources are available. It's just a choice. And unfortunately, it's a choice that a lot of people, young people in those situations, they see the struggle that they come from. They see whatever their home situation is. They see the environment that they live in and decide, I don't know what I got to do to get out of this, but whatever I got to do to get out of this, I'm going to do it. And unfortunately, a lot of times the streets are right there, ready to access and take them away. So this isn't a new problem. This has been going on for as long as Black people were put in the hood. Like, how do you stop this? How do you end this, what is it, from school to prison cycle, or from school to death cycle?
But
because again, that's also super multifaceted, and that's not just music.
But I think it starts with a choice. And I think the biggest choice is, they always talk about money changing people. If I'm the one running this, and Ghost, I'm going to use a TV example, you got to change your circle. Like, I look at someone like Snoop, fully ingrained in the culture, a part of Death Row. Snoop is like the most marketable man in the world right now.
I know, he's on all the commercials.
And I support that Black man. He openly,
Crip.
Has been
Till the
that.
day he died.
But he made a decision at some point. And I think he had the right people around him, which is important, to guide him. But at some point, you got to make a decision. Jay-Z at some point had to make a decision. Diddy,
he talked about it. It was like, he decided to go on tour instead of going to go do this one thing.
And it saved his life.
And it saved his life.
Changed all our lives for real. Because the world without Jay-Z would be
awful.
From Rockaware to Tidal to
everything that man touches.
To
just money.
To Beyonce. We don't know what she would have been without the marriage that they have and the kids and business ventures. But it starts with a decision. Diddy had the decision to make after the Shine incident.
Diddy was, influential in a lot of those artists. Like, he told Biggie, it's like, either you're going to sell drugs or you're going to make music.
Right.
And he chose to make music, and that is what really changed Diddy's life. And then obviously everything that came after that.
Making the band, he tried to get them together and made, like, a lot of these guys, Dipset and Cameron in them and what they did, Jim Jones, he's evolved. At some point you got to make a decision. And I don't know how, and from listening to the last album with Baby and Dirk, it sounds like Baby gets it. Like, he said he's going to start slowing down his features. He's starting to invest and do stuff differently. Because it sounds like he's smart enough to realize that life, it's a dead end. And we've always heard, you're either going to end up dead or in jail. And we always think we're smarter than the system, but everybody goes down. All your favorite gangster heroes go down. And some of them, it's just kind of frustrating, or it is frustrating. And I want us to get to a point where we as a society and we as a culture, one, hold them accountable, but two, with our dollars and voice, push them in a different direction. Like, I think...
But at that point, so again, at that point, if they... and that's for the ones who are aspiring rappers. Mm-hmm. So we're not talking about the ones who just live that life and live that life. They don't want to be rappers. They don't want to do any of that.
But they're different. They don't have the opportunity. I'm talking about the people with the opportunity.
But why don't they have the... And so that's what I'm asking. Like, you want...
They don't have the talent. If you can't rap, you can't rap.
I'm not talking...
If you can't play ball, you can't play ball.
Okay, so I'm not just talking about music at this point in the juncture. I'm talking about the consumer. The consumer wants to hear that music because that's the life they're living. Right. You want people to stop paying for it. Because if the people aren't paying for it, then the music companies won't push it for it to be made.
Correct.
So the consumer, though, they have no desire to be a rapper. They don't want to be a football player. They want to do what they're doing. And it's because they're successful at it. They're making good money at it, despite what the effects on their neighborhood, on themselves, financially, and none of that matters. They're in that moment. Those people, so what do you say? Because the violence will happen whether the people are making the music or not.
I agree and I disagree. I think the violence will happen, but I think it would be different. I think...
How? Just because...
The society hasn't always been this way in our community. We celebrate Tulsa and Black Wall Street and what that represented. We've talked about the black community as a whole. Black community existed before rap.
No, and I'm not saying it didn't, but this aspect, it's been a part of the black community for a long time. Whenever you talk about Black Lives Matters and police violence against black people, a lot of people are quick to bring up the whole black on black crime thing. Like gang violence, street violence, drug violence, like that's not just a made up thing. Like that is a thing.
Right, but that's driven to me by government. Like, we've talked about crack and the government's role in that. And so gangs really got false, and we've watched Snowfall. A lot of that came from dads being out of the home, so boys needing some kind of family community, and then money and fast money. But fast money is perpetuated a lot by hip hop culture. So I think they go hand in hand. If we had more people like Chance, if we had more people like J. Cole, if we had more Jay-Z mindset people, I mean, not young Jay-Z, but that are talking and rapping about crypto and investing and life insurance, like Nipsey was evolving into.
And so again, I'll be devil's advocate again. There are a lot of dope rappers out there that don't rap about guns, drugs, and killing. Like, but they're not the ones who are heavily played on the radio.
And that brings me back to the labels and the machine. That's strategic. There's a reason why those artists aren't getting record play. There's a reason why labels are not backing them. There's a reason why they don't care when, and I'll just use these names, and it kind of annoys me when people do this, Pookie kills Ray Ray, it's fine, but if Pookie killed Lil Johnny, it's an issue. You get a black rapper on a song talking about mass murdering a community of white people, the way they mass murder communities of black people. That song will not be played.
Right.
You start talking about or making jokes of shooting up an Asian parlor in your rap song.
No.
That song will not get played.
Yeah, and then you'd probably get sued.
A bunch of stuff will come. Labels aren't going to support that. But if you go shoot up your local hood, you start talking about drive-bys in your local black low-income community, we going to play that all day.
Right.
That's where I believe the labels and the machine is part of the problem. Because to your point, there are a lot of artists. I'll argue even on the Christian realm. Lecrae's managed to make it, but it ain't because he got any kind of radio support.
Yeah, Lecrae's dope. I'm a big fan.
Like, all of Reach and what they've done, like, D1 is another one that he's ascending. Social Club, and then they make dope music. Triple E makes dope music. Derek Minor makes dope music. They're from all over. But
Andy,
yeah, but they've had to do it on their own. Like, I went to their shows 10 years ago when they was funding their own joints. And it was a great show, but it was a struggle.
They ain't got no money, so it wasn't that fancy.
It was not fancy. I remember they had this little, it was like a Christmas light thing.
Oh, man.
In the back, but it was just like a board of lights. And it was super low budget. And Lecrae's talk, they would go on shows and they wouldn't even have a sound system. They would have to use whatever sound system the venue provided. And a lot of this times at this point, they was Christian, I guess you want to say. So it was at churches. And we know churches wasn't built for concerts. Not back then.
Not back then.
And this wasn't that long ago. So, I mean, I think there's a lot of that. And it's just the labels back certain machines. And they talked about, I think it was also on Joe Budden's podcast, as you guys can tell, I watch it a lot. But they were saying what music song Love, it was supposed to be God. And the label was like, nah. So,
what?
Love, so many things I gotta tell you.
Music. So
yeah.
You should just say Music Soul Child. I know he doesn't go by Soul Child anymore, but
I thought you were hip and in tune, but apparently not.
No, you just said Music Songs Love. Like the way you said it was too convoluted.
Okay, so
it was supposed to be God.
Yeah, it was supposed to be God. The song is supposed to be was written to God, and if you listen to the lyrics, it makes, in my case, more sense. But they switched it because they didn't want that. When Kanye switched, the machine didn't push a lot of Kanye stuff.
True. The Machine was angry.
He funded all those Sunday service choirs. He funded that transition. And I believe to this day, he's still funding it. So my point is, if you are talented, you will be found. But if you're not as talented, then you do need the machine. You do need the production. You do need the writers. And they're not going to back other people, which is why Chance is Chance. And has had to do it Chance's way. And with things like Patreon and Bandcamp and some of these other avenues to create revenue in this NFT wave, I think it's empowering creators. But
it's still... Go ahead.
But to present the lifestyle, the Rolls Royces, the Phantoms, the Cullinans, the Maybach trucks.
What's a Cullinan?
It's a type of car.
Oh.
You gotta subscribe and you gotta sign that 360 bag contract. So they'll give you the money, but now they own you. They own your labels. They own what you say. Lupe went through that for a while, and it negatively impacted his career to me. Where you lose your creative control. You lose what got you there because they want you to make this song. Joe is a great writer to me, Joe Budden, but he's saying so Pump It Up. It's a great song. It's played well.
Yeah, and that's always...
But the machine has pushed that song.
So crazy to me.
Jen is another one. I thought Jen was a dope rapper.
Yeah.
But his first thing, I think, was Speak Chinese or whatever. And naturally, he fell off. But I've listened to a couple of his albums since. He also had went Christian. And he still could rap. But the machine wasn't there. Rough Riders wasn't there because the labels pulled the support. So I think if labels chose to support a different message in our community, people would change the way they write because that's where the money is. And naturally, the people that listen to the music mentally would feel different because when you listen to things, you put things in your process, it programs you. And I won't even get into programming, but if we're hearing a different message, I believe we'd act different.
And that's all on the music industry to change.
I think a lot of it. I think you can go, like I said, we talked about Chance and some of the others, but that route's significantly harder and the success rate's significantly lower. And if you don't got it and you're trying to get it out the mud, you're going to get it the only way you may know how.
It's an interesting point of view.
Which conditions the generation to follow to do the same thing. And the cycle continues.
Okay. Well presented argument, sir.
Thanks. So that's really our time for this week. I know I did a lot of the talking, but this was...
As always.
That is not true.
Bro, you be talking.
I do not. When I edit, I be having to wait. I be almost falling asleep trying to wait for you to stop talking so that I can switch the topic back to, when I'm talking.
Boy, stop. You always lying to the people.
I don't be lying to y'all.
He be lying to y'all.
So I think in this next week we'll have a versus. I think next Wednesday. Ain't the Trina Eve joint this Wednesday?
It's a Wednesday?
It's a Wednesday, which is smart because outside's open and we're getting more into the summer.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know if I'm...
Oh, you ain't gonna watch? You ain't gonna watch the women?
I love Eve. Like, I'm going to watch. I don't know.
I would be curious what 20 songs they come up with, but that's just me.
Eve got 20 songs. Right. Trina? I don't know if Trina got 20 songs.
They got 20 songs. They got 20 songs that everyone knows. We gonna see.
Eve's got 20 songs that everybody knows.
We gonna see. That's all I'm gonna say.
You trash.
I'll be there. So thank you again. Shout out to the EB Radio fam. Shout out to all of our listeners and supporters. Definitely go check out thebondchronicles.com. We are live. There's a bunch of stuff there, and this is again just the beginning. We're continuing to grow. Thank God for putting this in our hearts and allowing us to walk this out, and we just let Him lead and guide us. What? All right. So In life, things happen. You have the power to choose what you do. Choose wisely and always bet on you.